Hey guys, it's Mandy. You know I love Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa in Tyler, and one of the things I love the most is they're always doing new things. And I recently tried their new sports massage, and I've got to tell you, it's incredible. So you know I'm active and I'm always focused on wellness, and this is just one more thing that I am adding in to my routine because now I'm hooked. They use the Theragun, which of course is going to help increase blood flow to certain areas and muscles that might be sore or tired or need attention, but you also get to add on another upgrade. You know, whenever I was there, I chose to go ahead and do the cup gliding as well as the hot stones. They work really well with the Theragun, maybe like a triple threat. Definitely ask for it the next time you go in to Hand and Stone. Ask about the sports massage. You can book your appointment today online at handandstonetyler.com, or you can stop by and see them. They're located in South Tyler in the Cumberland Shopping Center.
Welcome to the Celebrating Women podcast, hosted by Mandee Montana, a podcast that celebrates women, their stories, their struggles, and ability to overcome. Conversations that celebrate their gifts, their talents, and courage. It's the Celebrating Women podcast, presented by Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa in Tyler, Texas. With over 20 massage therapists and 6 estheticians, certified and trained in multiple protocols, you can get an affordable massage or facial located right here in the East Texas area. Book your appointment today. Stop by the spa in the Cumberland Shopping Center in Tyler or online at handandstonetyler.com. Welcome back to the Celebrating Women podcast. I'm Mandee Montana with special guest Carleen. She's back.
Hello. It's so great to be back.
I know this is the third time you've joined us on the podcast.
Yes. I want a ring of honor in here.
I think you need
and
one.
And I want my name
right?
on the ring of honor
it
with a couple of other of your people.
Yeah, it should be. I'm so glad that you made time for me today. So, you know, this time of year, I tend to start refreshing like office supplies because it's back to school and people are shopping for their kids. I don't have kids, but like I buy myself office supplies. I end up with a new journal or I start looking at a planner for the next year. And so when we were at lunch today, we were kind of talking about various things, some of the shifts that you and I have made in careers and also the time of year. And we thought this would be a great time to talk about vision casting because that's something you can do through any kind of transitional life change.
Yes.
Right? We know you have your life after divorce course, but even like someone who is maybe thinking about changing careers or maybe being an entrepreneur and stepping away from the workforce or re-entering the workforce and kind of evaluating what that might look like. Vision casting is a really helpful tool, and it's one that you happen to know a lot about.
Yes, I do know a lot about it just because I've been doing a lot of it over the past several years. And really thinking about where casting that vision and putting it in writing and giving it some specificity has actually helped advance the ball in bringing some of those things to light. From going from, I have a dream, but here's where I am in life, and how do I get from point A to point B? Or in my case, it was like, how do I get from point A to point like P?
Yes.
So many different things along the way.
Right.
And then actually figuring out a way to commit that to a process and then make a commitment to myself to do that and then start walking in that direction while I was still juggling the B, C, D, E, and F, and G that were in my life.
So one of my favorite ways to learn is through storytelling, and you are such a great storyteller. So since you've used it in a lot of different ways, is there a specific example that you'd like to share with how you have applied vision casting from, okay, I have this idea, this is where I want to go, I think I can do this, now I've got to create the vision so I can actually see it into reality, and that you've achieved it, or at least a piece of it?
Sure. So I'm always one of those that I'm a planner and I'm an overthinker. I've been accused of being a little bit of an overthinker.
I can relate to that.
But I think this is one of those situations, or well, my situation has been one where I believe that served me because I was in a corporate job, a very demanding job, a very time-consuming job, and one that really held my identity in a lot of ways. And what my dream was a complete departure by all accounts. Nothing in the same space, doing the same things, even though everything that I did has led up to teaching me how to do what I'm doing now, but being able to start with, okay, what's standing in my way? Because looking at how in the world am I ever going to get, how am I going to be an entrepreneur helping women recover from divorce and finding tools to manage their grief and to heal their hearts for real when I work 12 hours a day. And so what's in my way? So I started there. Okay, what stands in my way? Well, there's this little thing called a paycheck. I kind of need to have that. So that's not in my way, but there's a gap. How do I fill that gap? So kind of working through a lot of journaling, a lot of prayer, a lot of brainstorming, a lot of research and Google and looking at people who had been successful in leaving the workforce to follow entrepreneurial dreams. But I have to organize things. And so for me, it was like I had this sea of advice and ideas and processes and success stories, but how do I make those things mine? So I finally sat down and said, all right, just like I attack a business problem or a SWOT analysis, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my opportunities? What are my threats? Okay, what's in the way? Let me just get all that out. Think of everything I can think of that might be in my way. Which ones of these can I do something about? Which ones can I not? Okay, kind of like what's the little going on a bear hunt? And you come to a mountain, can't go over it, can't go under it, so got to go around it. So, okay, for the things I can't control, how do I go around those? And so it just kind of became something that was very hazy to, oh, okay, I can see that in the distance. I can see it now. And then after moving through some paths in life, and I don't even know, I feel like I'm all over the place, but looking back and saying, oh, okay, what worked? How did I clear the vision and down into a process?
So I feel like you've probably seen a lot of different ways to do this vision casting. I know I have. I've watched people do it where somebody guides you through it. And maybe you're in an audience at a conference and you've got somebody that's really dynamic speaking on stage. And they're like, okay, we're all going to close our eyes and I'm going to walk you through this vision process. I'm going to ask you some questions and have you picture yourself and feel the full senses, imagine yourself there. Like that's one way to do it.
Yes.
If you don't have that kind of guidance though, if you're Carleen and you're trying to get from point A to point P on your own through this journaling process, did you utilize some prompts or have you come up with some prompts to be that guide?
I have come up with some. I did not find any. I think what really worked for me and the catalyst for it was I had to basically make a contract with myself.
Okay.
I had to say, all right, Carleen, you're going to do this. And I basically wrote out a contract between me and myself and signed it and dated it. So then it's in writing, it's on paper, it's concrete. So it's like, okay, now, and I don't like to break promises to people.
Right.
I don't like to break promises to anybody. And we tend to break promises to ourselves. We promise we're going to go to the gym. We promise this, and we feel like, gosh, I could never break a promise to another person, but I can break a promise to myself because it's just me, right? But something about the act of writing that down is very, very meaningful. And that was my biggest hurdle, was someday I'm going to, oh, I would love to. Oh, it would be so nice if I could do this. Man, one of these days, wouldn't it be so great? I could dream about it. But for me, I needed to put it in writing in black ink and stick it up on my mirror where I could see it every day and remind myself.
So is that what you did?
I did.
Okay.
I did. And then as other things I would put things on Post-it notes and stick those on my mirror or on the refrigerator or on the wall of my prayer room. I have a prayer room that has a little push pin board, and I'll put people that I'm praying for and things that I'm praying for. And I started putting things that I knew, okay, I'm going to need help with this. So this is something I need to pray over.
Praying over that. That's what I was going to say, like asking for guidance, asking for the person.
And then other things that were, hey, like and I still use that system. I love me a Post-it note.
I do too. You see my calendar over there. Instead of writing on the calendar, I write on colorful Post-it notes and attach it to the calendar.
Yes.
Because then I can move it if something changes.
That's right. And there's something very satisfying when you actually do it, of being able to pull it off there and crumple it up and put it in the trash, or take a big black Sharpie and write done and the date on it. that's so satisfying, like crossing things off
Yes,
the to-do list.
agreed.
It's very, very satisfying. But I still have, I have questions that I'll ask myself. I have a Post-it note in my workspace right now that says, who needs me to show up for them today? So when I go upstairs to do my writing or to do whatever it is that I'm doing, and I have a writer's block, or I'm not feeling it, or something distracts me, I look over at that and see, and I have to answer that question to myself. If I don't do this today, that's an opportunity that I might miss, that somebody might need some encouragement or some assistance, that who needs me to show up. And I also have a note to myself that says, be worth your investment.
Ooh, that's
Because
good.
I've made a lot of investments in myself on this. And it's a reminder, hey, I need to be worth the investment that I've made. And so just in the processes that I have, the notes I've written myself, the breakthroughs that I've had, I've kind of created a little system for that vision casting that seems to be working for me right now.
Do you want to share a little bit more about it in detail? Like, where does that start for you for vision casting? Is that an internal? Is it identifying the vision? Is it identifying like self-worth? I mean, it can go a lot of different directions, I feel like, and I've seen different teachers teach different things. But for you, where do you start with vision casting?
Where I started was, and the first question that in my little system is, if I could fast forward to, whether that's 1 year, 5 years, whatever the case may be, what's the biggest difference that I would like to see?
Okay.
Because defining where you want to go, you can say, gosh, I want to be an entrepreneur someday.
Yeah, but what does that
But
look
what
like?
does that look like? And how specific is that? And what does that mean? Entrepreneurship takes on many, many forms. But if you give yourself a time frame, say, in 1 year, I would like to see myself either in a different job or working only 25 hours a week, or I have started this company by this time, or I am, 12 music lessons in on learning my dream, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
If I could fast forward, what do I want to have seen happen over the course of this time? Because so often we don't do that. We don't define it. And so it's
true.
just always out there in front of us like a carrot being dangled, but without definition of what that looks like, it's so easy not to get there.
You used the word specificity earlier. I think that's a good one. Clarity for me has always been a really good word. I think, sometimes different words resonate with different people. So whatever it is for you, like apply that to this to hone in on what is in game for me in this vision. Like, what is that?
Yes. What does that look like? And then what does that feel like? What does it feel like to have a freedom that you don't currently have? Or what does it feel like to be unencumbered or to actually have more of a purpose than you do right now? If you feel like your life it's not going in the direction you want it to go to, but you can say, well, 1 year from now, where I would love it to be is here. What does that look like? And what does that feel like?
Yeah, and what's the day-to-day like? I had, as a guest recently on an episode, I had Kim Evans and Kelly Carrasco from Hand and Stone. And both Kim and Kelly left another career to become a massage therapist. And they were both talking about how they feel like it's their purpose. And it's such a calling on their hearts to provide that piece of wellness to their clients. And you could hear it in their voice, and I could see it on their face and in their body language, how connected they were to their purpose. And I feel like that's the piece you're talking about, is as you're vision casting, you want to be in that state, that feeling, that connectedness to whatever end game is for you.
Yes.
Entrepreneurism or music lessons, as you mentioned. Like, what's it going to feel like to be on stage performing?
Right.
How are you going to be interacting with the audience? What is that going to feel like? What's it going to sound like? Or what's it going to taste like? Are you going to be drinking water on stage in between, or are you somebody who's going to be taking a shot? It could taste different depending on the person,
And maybe both, whether you're on stage on a Tuesday or a Saturday. It could be either or.
Could be either or. But yeah, thinking through and really getting yourself into that state of where the end goal is.
Yes.
So that's where we start. Where do we go next?
Yes. So then the next thing is asking yourself, okay, I looked at what 1 year what I want to accomplish over, what do I want to see a year from now? Then let's look a little further down. And the little resource that I have is kind of based on coming from a place of trauma or pain or being in a really rough place in life. And if I could say, okay, now let me look 5 years down the road, let me look a little further, and I could say, I have crafted for myself a happy and purpose-filled life. What got me there? Because sometimes we can't see a path forward, but if we can put ourselves in a place and then look backward, it's easier, even though those things haven't happened yet. But you can say, gosh, imagine myself in this life. What do you think it was that got me there?
Right.
Because then that's your path forward. And if you've given yourself that exercise of what does it actually feel like, what does it taste like, then it's much easier to actually, because then now you're motivated because you've had that little taste of it in your thought life and in your dreaming life.
I do that backward process when I need to be somewhere. It's like I back time that way. I'm like, okay, well, if I need to meet Carleen at 1:00, where do I need to be at 12:30?
That's right.
Do I need to already have my purse packed? Do I need to be walking out the door, or can I be walking out the door at 12:15? So if I need to be kind of in transition at 12:30, then I probably need to have my makeup and hair done by 12. So that means I need to be in the shower by, and then I just go backwards, right?
Yep.
So I feel like that's what you're talking about is once you've identified, okay, this is where I want to be. What did it take to get me there? What are those steps looking backward?
Yes.
To fill in the blanks.
I think our brains work better that way.
Yeah, I think so too.
And it's kind of like if we have a problem and we're just not sure where to go, what to do next, we can get stuck and not see the path forward. But if a friend says, hey, I have this problem, I need some advice, I need some help, it's so much easier to help that person find a solution. That's kind of what you're doing now because you're taking yourself out of your today, which feels maybe chaotic or heavy, and you can't see the forest for the trees. It's almost like you're lifting yourself out of there. So it's almost playing the same trick on your brain as if you're giving a friend advice, which is way easier to do.
So much easier.
And
Yes.
so if you can say, okay, here's where I am in the future now. Let me look back and see what got me there. You're lifting yourself out of your present state, which is what blocks your vision.
Yes.
So that's why that is effective. And I don't know if there's a psychological principle for
There
that.
probably is.
I'm not.
We just know it works.
I took some psychology in college, but that's the extent of my psychological education. But for me, I have found that to work, and I have found that to work with people.
Yes, it's a very helpful tool. So we identify where we want to go.
Yes.
Then we start to backtrack to see how we need to get there. What's next?
What's next is looking at, okay, what stands in the way?
Identifying obstacles.
Identifying those obstacles. What are the things, the obstacles or the threats? What stands in my way? And so I think that we can tend to give ourselves a million reasons why we can't do things, but something about the act of, okay, all right, well, let's just write those things down. Let me take a look let me assess it for real instead of just thinking of all these obstacles. I'm just going to write them down. It robs them of their power.
I agree.
And when you look at that list, okay, well, that's not as bad as I thought.
Right.
They don't seem as big. And then also there's a to-do list.
I love a to-do list.
I do too.
I was just
I love
thinking
it.
right now of like 4 things that if I wrote them down, I might actually do them tomorrow. And they probably have needed to be done for about 2 weeks. So I probably need to write those down so I can mark them off.
Yes.
The to-do list. Okay.
There's something about the act of writing those things down that puts the power back in your own hands.
Yes.
Instead of the power being in the obstacles. Now you've taken the power away from those obstacles.
So we've gained clarity on where we're going. We've backtracked to help create the path to get there. We've identified some obstacles. What's next on this vision casting journey?
The next thing I had to learn was to to tell myself and believe this message and continue to remind myself that I am stronger than I think. I have more control over my life than I think, and God has great plans for me. If you're walking on this earth, God has great plans for you. And then it's up to you whether you step into those plans or not. There's everyone, whether you're a stay-at-home mom or a CEO or a minister or a nurse or a librarian or anything on the spectrum. God has a great and wonderful and amazing plan for you. And some of us step into those plans and some of us don't. And the sad thing is when we choose not to step into those plans, God's like, well, shoot, I guess I got to raise up somebody else. I had this for you, but I'm not going to force you into it. So for me, it was that I had to come to terms with, I'm stronger than I think. I have more control over my life than I think. And God has great plans for me, and I don't want to miss it. I don't want to get there one day and him go, and me be looking at this amazing woman and going, wow, I wish I'd have done that. And him looking at me going, well, you could have.
Yeah.
Meant for you to.
Called you to.
Called you, asked
Invited you.
Invited you. And you didn't for whatever reason, because you didn't think you were worthy, or you didn't think that you could, or you didn't think that you had the control. I don't want to be that girl.
So you need to carve out some time for this process, right?
A little bit. And it doesn't have to happen
30 minutes,
all at one sitting. Yeah.
An hour. Or like you said, maybe this is something you do over coffee in the morning, a few mornings in a row. Like when you're waking up and you're kind of like getting in touch with who you are as you're preparing for your day. You wake up a little bit earlier and you spend some time with this. Because it might change a little.
Oh, for sure.
We talked about that as we were leaving lunch, how both of us, whenever we like write a blog post or start identifying something like a piece of writing of any kind, we'll write it. And then we come back to it maybe the next day or a few hours later and we completely rewrite it because that doesn't make any sense anymore. But if we hadn't started and done the initial draft, we wouldn't have the second draft. So this is the same thing. This can be an evolving process, right?
Without a doubt. And it can be, over my coffee on Saturday mornings, because that's the only time that my brain slows down for a moment and that I have a few moments of peace and that I'm not thinking about my work week anymore. Yeah. And it might take
Do people not think about their work weeks? Is there a moment where some people actually like unplug and don't think about their work weeks?
I don't know, but if you're out there, teach me your secret.
Yeah. We both enjoy work, so that's a big piece of it. We find a lot of purpose and joy in our work. It's a big piece of our identity because of that. So we're kidding and also not kidding.
Yes, exactly. Well, and then for me, this is kind of my line of thinking. Some people might need to do this in a different order. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I have done worksheets, and Mel Robbins has a like a goal setting download that she was really talking about earlier this year. And I downloaded it and started working through it because I kind of wanted to compare her system to mine. And hers is a very thorough inventory of looking back at the year, looking forward. But for some of her questions, I wouldn't have an answer for them.
Okay.
And I would get stuck. And then I said, you know what? I'm just going to go on to the next question. And I'm not going to sit here and get stuck. And then a couple of days later, when I reapproached that question I had skipped, I was like, oh, now I have an answer for that. Now I get it. Our brains all work in different orders sometimes, I think.
Yeah. So if you need to skip around, this is just the
this
order
is my
of
framework.
This is Carleen's framework. But but I like it because I appreciate where you're coming from. I see the path the logical path that you're taking to get through the vision. So what's next after we're reminding ourselves of our strength?
Yes. So you're going to love this one because it's also a to-do list. Oh. What are 3 things that I can do to help this vision become a reality? Just 3. And if you don't think of one, but something, put something down on paper that you're like, okay, this is at least one thing. I would like for you to have at least 3 things to do to help make this a reality. That doesn't mean this is all that I need to do to complete it. But if I can identify 3 things that will help advance the ball, what are those 3 things?
In your framework, do you see those as big pieces to the puzzle, or are you looking at action items for today? Like, how are you looking at that, those 3 things?
Both. I really looked at it as both. Like, for me, when I was looking at how do I leave corporate America and run an e-commerce business that helps women recover from divorce, for me, what are the 3 things that I could do along the way while I was still working to help this become a reality were okay, I'm going to commit to writing something every weekend, whatever that looks like. And as I started writing, then the framework for the program started to come into focus better. So the commitment was I could start writing. I could just start writing down my thoughts on what was it that helped me truly find healing from divorce. Where did I go wrong that I can write down about, hey, I learned this lesson the hard way.
Yeah.
Here's a way that women can do it smarter than I did.
Right.
What are the things that I learned? And I just started writing. And in the course of making myself write those things down, then the framework started to present itself to me because I was moving the ball forward. So my 3 things were I could start writing something every week. I can start talking to people who I know have been through a divorce and finding out what was the hardest part and what worked for you. And then the other thing was to manage my stress so that I could be creative. Because I have in the past let stress control me instead of me controlling it. And I knew that was going to be a big piece of the puzzle because there would always be 100 reasons why I needed to spend all of the time, all of the energy, and all the effort toward that corporate job because...
Right. It's paying the bills.
It's paying the bills. People need me. There's never a shortage of tasks to be done, problems to be solved.
Right.
So for me, one of my things was managing my stress better so that I could actually clear my mind, do some writing, and create the framework. So that was really where I started. It was that simple.
Yeah.
I'm just going to start moving in a direction and writing something down, even though I have no idea what it's going to look like.
Right. So as we're moving through this journey, now we've identified a few of the things that we need to do to advance the ball and move along the path a little bit further. What's next?
The next thing I asked myself was, okay, what needs to happen that only God can do? That there's no way I'm going to be able to do it.
Okay.
So, because, again, let's get rid of the excuses, right? As to, well, this would be impossible. At this time when I started on this journey, I was a one-income household and had been for many, many years.
Yes, you had.
And
as long as I had known you.
Yeah. I did not have the luxury of saying, you know what, I'm just going to leave with no income to replace this. So I need to define those things that only God can do, that it's going to require this for me to be able to do this. So what are those things that only God can do? And then that gave me something to stick up on that prayer wall and to be able to say, okay, all right, God.
Yeah.
Here's what I need from you.
Yeah.
He loves it when we do that.
That's true. He does.
He does. Because nothing's too hard for him. He's like, I was wondering when you were going to put me into this whole thing.
Yes. It's amazing what happens when you start praying for things. I've had some amazing things show up this last week too. But beyond that, now that we've identified that that's a big piece to the puzzle.
Huge piece.
After we've said, okay, God, this is what I need from you. And you're in this process, you're doing the things that you can do while God's doing the things that he does. What's the next step?
My next step was asking myself, what gifts did God give me that maybe the world needs?
Okay.
Because for me, it was important to know that I was doing some good. And I don't tend to acknowledge my gifting.
I think that's common for a lot of humans.
And
a lot of humble humans.
Well, sure. And and I was raised to be humble. And I do believe that is a godly virtue. And at the same time, he tells us that we are wonderfully made. So he gives us all gifts. And if he has a purpose for us, then he has to have given us giftings. And sometimes it's in identifying those giftings that we have that helps us carve that path forward. I knew I was going to start writing every week and figure it out. So then I thought, well, so what are some of the gifts that he's given me? Because then that's going to help me see what direction I might be supposed to take this. And I've talked to women who they're like, I don't know what I would want to do. I've been working in the same job, getting up, getting kids off to school, cooking dinner for my husband, watching an hour of television, going to bed, get up the next day, lather, rinse, repeat, all weekend long. All I'm doing is laundry and house cleaning and grocery shopping and making a Target run and going to baseball games and taking my daughter to practice. And I have no idea. I don't have a dream. Who has time to dream? I've had women say, I don't have a dream for what I want to do with my life when I grow up, because who has time to think that way? Yeah. But they know that sometimes we get in a place where we know that where we are right now is not where there's more. There's got to be more. And so sometimes it's in identifying those gifts that we have that can help us, especially if we don't have a specific vision or dream that we want to accomplish, but we just know we don't want to stay here.
So how would you direct someone who feels stuck on that? Like what you just described, somebody that maybe feels like they're in a rat race or on a hamster wheel where it's just, their mind is spinning, they're doing the things, they're barely getting by, maybe living paycheck to paycheck. And, that's a big thought for them to go, I just feel like my gift is to get this kid to school today. like I'm capable of that. How would you recommend that they start to identify those gifts?
I would, if their brain is constantly spinning and they feel like there's just no room in there, I highly recommend journaling, even if it's 5 minutes a day. You can put your phone down 5 minutes earlier. You can stop scrolling Instagram. You can take a break for 5 minutes and get the things that seem to bounce around in our heads, put them on paper, because that creates space in your brain. And there's a lot of scientific evidence that supports that, that just the act of journaling and writing the things down that you worry about, the things that you're thinking about, getting those things out of your brain and on paper, it does two things. First of all, it stops the echo chamber where they're bouncing around like a racquetball, because you've directed it somewhere else and something inside your brain knows, oh, okay, I can lay that down for a second. The other really cool thing it does is it takes things out of, when you journal, when you write things down, it helps when you're talking to a therapist as well, but there's a lot of science really supporting actually the physical act of writing it down or typing it out. Is it removes it from the emotional side of your brain and moves it over into the logical side of your brain. So all of a sudden, it's not giving you stress anymore, and problem solving kicks in. And it's almost like, okay, again, it robs it of its power over you, and it doesn't seem so big, and then it creates space in your brain. And so then it's sitting down and sometimes I've met people like, I don't have any gifts. Like you said, my gift is getting my kids off school. I'm a great mom. Okay, what makes you a great mom? I'm nurturing. I'm thoughtful. I hear what people say that they would like, and I remember those. Or ask your friends. I've been amazed at people that don't think they have any gifts or talents, that when you talk to their friends, they'll say, oh my gosh, she's an amazing speaker. She gives great advice. Or have you seen her draw or paint? Have you tasted her cooking? We all have gifts that we may not see as a gift. So if you can't really identify those on your own, ask your friends.
I was hoping you were going to say that, because I was like, I feel like that's a great place to start, because so often our friends can be great reflections for those moments where if you just feel stuck and you feel incapable, because I think we've all been there at some point, at a low point where, even when you get it all journaled out, then you're like, wait, why did I do this? Why I created some space, but what was the space for? Oh, giftings. Oh, I wonder what Carleen thinks my giftings are, or I wonder what Ashley thinks my giftings are, or what would Lindsay say? And you know what? There's probably some common denominator there.
For sure.
There's probably some commonality. So I think that's a great, resourcing your community, because and too, for your vision casting too. I feel like sometimes other people can maybe see a dream for you that maybe you wouldn't allow yourself to see. So sometimes sharing.
Yes.
I had this idea, talking through it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can be invited to something bigger. So
for sure.
I love that.
And ask yourself, what are things that people ask me for a lot? What do I get asked to do at work all the time? What is it that people come to me for? And I would say when you're asking those friends, find those ones who are always honest with you that aren't just going to blow smoke and say, oh, but you're amazing at everything you do. Okay, that's not helpful. I need some specifics.
Right. Thank you, and.
Right. Don't tell me I can sing when I can't sing.
Oh, goodness.
You know what I mean?
I do.
There are those friends that they love you so much, and it's great to ask all your friends, but really go to those ones who are going to be honest, and think about, what is it that I always get asked to do?
Yes. What do I always get asked to do? Good thoughts. Okay, so now we've identified giftings. Where are we going next on our vision casting journey?
For my thing, it was, okay, if it's a perfect world, what does me sharing those gifts look like?
Ooh,
to me?
I like that, because that's different for different people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I could paint whatever world I wanted, what does that look like? I've been told I'm a pretty good teacher.
You are a great teacher.
Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
for me, it was, okay, so you want to help women that have been divorced. You've been told you're good at teaching. You've been told you're okay at writing. So if I had a perfect world, what would that look like to me? Is it teaching Sunday school? Is it going back to school and getting my therapist a degree so I could become a therapist? And I was like, nope, that's not it. Nope, that's not. I've been told I'm a pretty good teacher. But in my perfect world, I want to work from home. I want to set my own hours. And seeing that the world was moving into
a digital space.
That so much of what we consume, so much of what is natural to us now is some sort of online interaction. So in me, this was spurred by a friend of mine telling me a gifting that I had that she felt like I should be doing something with. And then I said, well, in my perfect world, what would that look like? And then I was amazed at how quickly the business plan, and when I looked at, oh my gosh, and here's why that makes sense here and here and here and here and here. And so walking through that perfect world scenario. Now, am I living that perfect world scenario? Not quite yet, but
You're building it
a whole lot closer to it than I was a few years ago when I began this process for the journey that I'm on right now.
Right. Gosh, this is such a helpful tool, Carleen. Is there anything else to add to this, or are we I feel like we're kind of getting closer to the vision.
We are.
Okay.
We are. And so the next thing I wrote down is, what is one thing I can do each day that shares more of my gifting with the world? And that's kind of just in full transparency.
Walking the
That's
walk.
where I am on my journey right now, is trying to figure out, I have all the content. So for me, that answer to that question is putting helpful, encouraging content out on social media.
Well, you're doing that right now.
Well,
you are doing it.
I am. That is still part of the learning journey. I'm still
Yes.
learning, as someone who kind of swore off of social media for a while. I'm jumping back in the pool, and the pool feels really icy cold. It's a little bit of a shock to my system.
That's how it feels for all of us when we first jump in.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then after that, it is figuring out a way to have a visual representation that engages your creative side. We've been doing all of this logical side of our brain. We've been writing all these things down. I started with a vision board.
Yes.
You could do a vision board, you could draw pictures, whatever. But I like to find another outlet. You know, one of the things I did when I was in sales that probably was one of the most impactful things I ever did. And I spent a lot of money on sales training, and I would listen to cassette tapes of Zig Ziglar in my car between sales calls. But probably the best thing that I ever decided to do was I bought a little small cork board at Office Depot, and I sat down and thought, what are a few things that I want that I can't afford right now?
Yeah.
So I went to jcpenney.com and printed out a picture of new towels. And I cut that out, and I stuck that on my board. And I printed out a picture of the word debt, and I put a big red circle and slash over it, no debt. I printed out a picture of a swimming pool. I wanted a swimming pool. I put that on the board. I had about 9 things. A Porsche Boxster was another one that I really, really wanted. And I put all those things on that vision board, and I put them strategically above where my phone sat on my desk. And every day before I went home, I would look at that board of all those things I wanted that I could not yet afford. And I would pick up that phone and make one more call. And I can't tell you how many appointments I got off of that one more call. And it was it was me creatively with scissors and tape and push pins making this board.
Yeah.
And how impactful that was for me. And it was so satisfying that as I achieved those goals, I would write with a big Sharpie done and put the date on it. And I would leave it up there for another 30 days to remind me that not only do I still have unmet goals, but I've done some of these. And if I can do that one, I can do that one. And then after 30 days, I would pull it down and replace it with another goal. So that's kind of one of those things from my corporate world and in the world of being in sales that I've translated to this process. And whether that's drawing pictures, for me, it was a vision board.
Yeah, there's a lot of support for vision boards.
Yes.
A lot of research supports it.
Yes.
Having that visual representation. And again, being able to put yourself, like, you probably know what it feels like to experience new towels.
Oh, they're the best.
They're the best. And so you're thinking about that when you're looking at those towels, right?
Yes.
And you're like, okay, that I can accomplish. I can accomplish that with a few more appointments. So I am going to pick up the phone I'm going to make that call. That Porsche Boxer looks really good, but that's probably going to be a lot more appointments. But those towels, you know what I mean? You've got your something that is more achievable, and then you've got that stretch goal too of I can get there. I can get that one's going to be on the board for a while, but I can get there.
That's right. And the day that I did buy those new towels, it took, my linen closet looked like probably a lot of our linen closets. It was hand-me-down towels, gimme towels. Nothing matched.
I think I have towels that are 30 years old. Yes, they do have holes in them. I don't know why. I can afford new towels.
I know, but 5 different colors.
Yes.
And I went and donated those, and it felt so great. And then, washed all the towels and folded them beautifully like they are in the store. And then opening for weeks and weeks. Every time I opened that linen closet, it was so satisfying to see those beautiful towels all in a row. Yeah. And I'm still that way.
And I'm a big fan of gratitude. And that's that feeling, right? Yes. Like whether you thought it consciously or not, you're feeling grateful for those new towels. And then that just supports that whole process. Lather, rinse, repeat.
That's right.
For the visualization. So I love that you included that piece. What is next after visualizing?
Then for me, it was, okay, I'm going to make a commitment. And I actually wrote down a prayer that I would repeat, a prayer and a commitment. So it's like, all right, God, here's what I'm asking for. And I'm a big believer that obviously God is sovereign and there are things that only he can do. I'm also a believer that he wants us to cooperate with him on the work. And sometimes our job is to sit and do nothing and allow him to work. And sometimes our job is to walk in the direction and cooperate with his work. So it was kind of all right, here's my commitment to doing the parts that I'm supposed to do. And here's what I need from you. I need the guidance. I need you to tell me when I'm supposed to walk and when I'm supposed to be still. And just writing that out. There's something about writing out those prayers. It's really cathartic and helpful. And it helps once we've written it, we've committed it to memory a little better. Because I think I'm guilty of I'll pray something once and think I've prayed it. Yeah. But we're supposed to repeat those every day.
I was going to ask you about that piece specifically because that's one of the things that I have found to be helpful over the years. And it's something I've been lazy with lately. I'm trying to rebuild the habit. When I gratitude journal, a lot of times it feels like a prayer, right? Gratitude is a prayer. And so I'll write down some of the same things daily. Sometimes it's a slightly different version of the things that I'm grateful for. And sometimes I'll, say that I'm grateful for something that hasn't even happened yet because I'm doing that vision casting of I'm so grateful for this abundant income that allows me to be a part of 4 or 5 podcasts, whatever it is, right?
I did that for my husband. I would thank God in advance for the husband. And I would pray over him. I had no idea who he was. But I prayed for him. Wherever he is, Lord.
I did something similar too whenever I was single, and I did it daily, and I said it aloud daily, and it was kind of like a practice, almost like a chant or like a song. And I had a specific piece of music that I listened to when I would say that aloud, and it kind of got me into that feeling of not just gratitude, but of love and of appreciation and joy, and just really being in that state of what it would feel like once I had found someone who was my partner, my equal, that was going to be on this journey with me and kind of us doing this thing together and how great that feels. But I think you can do that with your goals too. And that's like I just recall writing down like 10 goals a day. And one of them was actually to have a podcast. So I'm like, okay, it's happening. That one actually came to fruition, but for like a year, that was one of my 10 goals. And I would write it down as if it had already happened every day. And I think that repetition process is great. Like, do the worksheet, get it down on paper, but then find a way that works for you. Even if you're writing it on a Post-it note daily on your desk, it doesn't have to be a fancy journal.
That's right.
On a legal pad, whatever it is. But that practice of putting the intention behind it and feeling those feelings of, I can do this, I'm doing this, I've done this, I think is a big piece.
Yes, something that's a reminder. Yes, and that's really the last piece of it is something that's a daily reminder and something that's a commitment to it. Whether that's putting your vision board somewhere where you can't help but to see it.
Right.
You know, I have some daily affirmations that I wanted to integrate into my psyche and my life. And so I actually printed them out and put them in a frame and put them on my bathroom counter. Now, they got completely covered with hairspray and got kind of disgusting. So I had to move them, but I moved them to my prayer room space so that I can still, and some of them are reminders of some of my gifts that I need to make sure that I use them. And then some of them are things I would like to improve upon. Like one of my affirmations is, I am a frugal person. And I'm frugal in some ways. I could be more frugal. But if I tell myself every day, I am a frugal person, I'm creating neural pathways that will help make me more frugal. And my husband will just love that. What I did when we were talking about praying over our husband, so another friend of ours, Angela, and I did this years ago. We went and bought men's ties. We went and picked out our favorite tie in the store. And I had bought a couple of my girlfriends that we were in a Bible study group together, a prayer box. And I had written a couple of prayers and some things for them and gifted them each this box. And so Angela and I both went and bought ties.
Okay.
And so I put that tie in that prayer box that I visit every morning. And so it was that visitor. So I would pull that tie out and I would pray over, and it would remind me to pray over. I knew God had a partner for me. I had no idea who he was going to be. So having that visual reminder and
tangible piece.
And that I told Brad when I gave it to him that this is a
Oh, you gave him the tie.
I did. I said, this is a prayer-soaked and tear-soaked tie. You probably are going to want to get it dry cleaned because I prayed into it. It probably had chapstick on it. You know, we don't know. I cried into it sometimes, but I would say prayers over that tie and over the man that was someday going to wear that tie. And it was very sweet. When I did give it to him, I knew we were going to be getting married. It was, you know how you can just tell. Yeah. And the very sweet thing is he wore it on our wedding day. Aww. And then after the wedding, he put it in a shadow box with his favorite photo from our wedding, and it hangs in his space in our closet.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah. And it's that reminder, that visual reminder. For me, it was
Your
a visual reminder to pray. And then now it's that reminder of answered prayer. That every day when I look at
gratitude, too.
So much gratitude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I got me a good one.
Yeah, you did. I love this so much. So the best part about all of this is you've been listening. If you haven't been taking notes, if you've been on a walk or you've been driving or doing housework or whatever you do while you listen to the Celebrating Women podcast, Carleen actually has a PDF.
I do.
She's willing to share it with you.
I do. I created a PDF because I think that there are multiple times in our life that we might need to cast new vision for things. And,
for sure.
And something about writing it down. I've seen that research that says you're 40% more likely to make your vision become a reality when you find a way to write it down, to have that physical representation of it, and make that commitment to yourself that you're going to do everything in your power to get there.
Yes.
Stop dreaming about it and start walking in that direction.
So tell me the easiest way for us to do this. Can I put the link in show notes?
Yes.
Or do you want to direct them of where to go, or just go to the show notes and Mandee will have the link there?
Yes, we can put that in the show notes.
Perfect.
And I will be sharing it on my Facebook page is Life After Divorce Course. And I also on Instagram, Carleen_Dark. So that will be going out there. But yes, I'll give you a link in the show notes so that people can not have to worry about the algorithms.
I love that. Of course, you should also check out her socials and follow. Or if you know someone that's going through this transition, share this with them. Just because you're in a wonderful, happy marriage, that doesn't mean that you don't know somebody who's struggling that might need this information. So share this episode or share Carleen's socials as well so that they can get connected. And there's a community aspect of this as well too that she's working on. So it's a great thing to plug into. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes,
it's always so much fun.
I'm excited to do this. I've got some ideas that I want to vision cast around, and I'm excited to use your framework.
Awesome. And give me feedback.
Because
we can add to it, improve it.
I love it.
I love to hear the feedback.
The Celebrating Women podcast wants to hear from you. Email us a voice message to celebratingwomenpodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear your story or the story of an incredible woman you know. Become part of the conversation on social media. Facebook.com/celebratingwomenpodcast. On Instagram, search Celebrating Women Podcast. The Celebrating Women podcast has been presented by Hand & Stone Massage and Facial Spa in Tyler, Texas. Book your appointment today. Stop by the spa in Cumberland Shopping Center or online at handandstonetyler.com. Support the show for as little as $3 per month at celebratingwomenpodcast.buzzsprout.com or visit our show notes. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to the Celebrating Women podcast.
Hey guys, it's Mandee. Have you been struggling to lose those extra pounds? Oh, I know. I have totally been there. An extra, 15 to 20 pounds can totally creep up on you in perimenopause. Or at least it has with me. And I think I found it early. I hope it's not happening to you. But if it is, I've got the solution. You can lose up to 15 pounds in 8 days with an incredible product line that I found and I want to share with you. Get a custom product recommendation with a complimentary wellness screening in the show notes. Just click Zing with Mandee.